This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets. U.S. oil producers were much more active last year in the prolific Permian Basin than the Energy Information Administration previously thought, the agency said on Wednesday, though its production forecasts for the region remain unchanged. The AIA revised the number of drilled but uncompleted Duke wells in the top U.S. shale basin, adding several years' worth of unreported DUCs recently submitted to Frac Focus, a data provider. It was another of several AIA data overhauls this year. The revision does not affect the EIA's historical estimated crude oil production in the Permian because operators had already submitted their crude oil production to states, the AIA said.
2 cargoes of diesel sailing from Russia to South America have switched their destination to Brazil from Chile, according to Refinitiv Icon's vessel monitoring data. Russia has exported fuel to many countries that previously imported little or none of its oil since the European Union banned Russian fuel imports in February under sanctions to punish Russia for invading Ukraine. In Latin America, where fuel imports have recovered to pre-pandemic levels, Brazil has become the main importer of Russian diesel cargoes, with Cuba also ramping up purchases of Russian crude and fuel, according to the Icon data.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Oil prices were broadly stable on Thursday as traders warily watched for signs of progress on talks to raise the U.S. debt ceiling, after surging in the previous session on optimism over U.S. fuel demand. Brent crude futures inched down 13 cents, or 0.2%, to $76.83 a barrel as of 11:42 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude dipped 12 cents, or 0.2%, to $72.71 a barrel. A sharp plunge in U.S. gasoline inventories due to demand surging to the highest levels since 2021, and optimism surrounding negotiations over the U.S. debt ceiling, helped the main crude benchmarks settle more than $2 higher on Wednesday.
China exported 620,000 tons of diesel fuel in April, the lowest since July last year as refiners scaled back overseas sales amid narrower export margins and strong demand at home, data showed on Thursday. April's diesel exports were higher than the 530,000 tons shipped out a year earlier, but down 56.9% from the 1.44 million tons exported in March, data from the General Administration of Customs showed. Gasoline exports fell to 820,000 tons, versus 980,000 tons in April of 2022.
Next, we have the top news in metal markets.
The global zinc market surplus climbed to 26,700 tons in March, from a surplus of 22,800 tons a month earlier, data from the International Lead and Zinc Study Group, ILZSG, showed. During the first 3 months of 2023, ILZSG data showed a surplus of 49,000 tons, versus a surplus of 116,000 tons in the same period of 2022.
The global copper concentrate market will see a steep deficit during 2025 to 2027 as Asian smelters ramped up capacity amid a lack of matching mining projects in the pipeline, analysts said. China is expected to add 2.6 million tons of smelting capacity in the next 5 years, said Craig Lang, an analyst at consultancy Crew. Indonesia will add 725,000 tons of smelting capacity, and India's Adani smelter, first stage capacity at 500,000 tons and eventually hitting 1 million ton, is slated to start by the later half of 2024, Lang said. We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector. Chicago corn futures slid to the weakest level in 18 months on Thursday as favorable weather boosted crops in the U.S. Midwest and heightened expectations for a bumper harvest this year, while soybean prices slumped to a 10-month low. Dealers said both corn and soybean crops in the U.S. were off to a good start, while there was also concern about weak demand, particularly from China. The most active corn contract on the Chicago Board of Trade was down 1.6% at $5.52 minus 3/4 a bushel at 12:14 GMT after setting an 18-month low of $5.52 minus 1/2.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.